Are you already on Wikisana, the largest search engine in holistic medicine? Then I recommend you to look it up.
With sauerkraut against arthrosis. Some of you may be thinking that this is a steep thesis, but we'll find out more in a moment. A warm welcome. Thank you for tuning in to our series Natural Medicine. I have Karl Müller with me today, a graduate engineer and movement scientist, and one of his areas of expertise, as I have now learned, is fermentation. And we're going to tell you a bit about that now. I'm sure it will be very informative and hopefully helpful for you too. Stay in touch. See you soon. We're about to start. Hello dear Karl, thank you for being here. Nice to have you back.
Thank you very much.
I've already said that we have a steep thesis with sauerkraut against osteoarthritis.
Yes, and that's okay too. The steep thesis with the sauerkraut, I stand by that. Only about the expert. I wouldn't call myself an expert in this field. I didn't study that. The other one, human movement science, that's my topic, movement and the musculoskeletal system. And the other is simply my own experience. I've been self-sufficient for many, many years. Since I retired, more intensively, I could actually be 95% or 100% self-sufficient if I wanted to, because I still buy oil, I still buy some nuts. And what else? I actually produce everything myself and especially fermented. I've had incredible success with fermentation. I'm very happy to tell you about this because I've been able to help so many colleagues with it and also myself. It has worked. Just everything without guarantee. These are my own experiences.
Of course. I've also heard a lot from actual fermentation experts about what fermented products do for the stomach and intestines. But it's not everything. Sauerkraut, for example. Not the sauerkraut you can buy in the supermarket, which is usually pasteurized, I've been told.
There is also unpasteurized. So here in Switzerland you can also buy it raw in the wholesale trade. It then says raw, and that's what I recommended to my colleagues who I didn't immediately serve with my own sauerkraut. And that really worked. Some people had to get up several times during the night to go to the toilet, as it's common for older men like me to have to get up 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And everyone told me that after 1 month he didn't have to get up again. So that really has its effect, and also with the sauerkraut from the specialist shop. But you have to be careful, you have to take the raw and not the pasteurized one, as you said, and you also have to eat it raw. Otherwise the probiotic effect is gone. And speaking of probiotics, there is so much being sold. There's so much TV advertising for probiotics with yogurt and all sorts of things. I don't want to deny this effect, but sauerkraut is just so simple. It's very cheap and it works. It even works against cancer.
Yes, you're speaking from your own experience.
Yes, well, I had prostate cancer. And then they wanted to put me on this chemotherapy track, a neurologist first, and so on, very quickly. I said to myself, I don't know how long this cancer has been there. I don't have to do that overnight. I'm thinking about it carefully, I've really thought about it long and hard. I also read studies, asked my common sense and asked God. Then I decided to eat sauerkraut. For a year and a half, I practically lived on sauerkraut for 80% of the time. But not just sauerkraut made from cabbage, but everything that I ferment. I ferment basically every vegetable, be it fennel, kohlrabi, autumn vines, carrots, and anything else I simply have in the garden. And just eat that. Then no bread. Basically no carbohydrates, except for those that are in vegetables. I ate protein. I ate a bit of fish. And after a year and a half it was all gone. By the way, 8 large polyps that I had in my bowel. I had 4 large and 4 smaller polyps, and I didn't have them cut out during the colonoscopy, but left them. And they have all disappeared. So the effect of sauerkraut is really immense. That's why I took it. And for some time now, I tell our customers, we also write this, who have arthritis, hip problems, knee problems, and so on with the help of new walking, of walking correctly. That's my subject, movement science.
Mit Hilfe vom neuen Gehen, vom richtig Gehen, das ist ja mein Fach, Bewegungswissenschaft.
Who also treat their osteoarthritis with our shoes. They simply notice a very strong improvement and rapid improvement when they do both, so move differently and eat differently at the same time.
Also anders bewegen und gleichzeitig anders ernähren.
With osteoarthritis, and there is of course my opinion on this. My model idea of why this is so important with osteoarthritis, with sauerkraut and osteoarthritis.
That would have been my next question, exactly.
It's not the osteoarthritis that hurts. Because there are hardly any pain receptors in the cartilage and in the bone, they are in the fascia and in the soft tissue around the bones and cartilage.
In den Weichteilen rund die Knochen und die Knorpel herum.
And that's where the pain is, and it hurts because it's inflamed. The inflammation is actually the painful part. This is also the case with rheumatism, other inflammatory diseases, muscle diseases, myofibroalgia, and so on.
Myofibralgie und so weiter.
And then you know that if you want to get rid of an inflammation, then you have to eat less sugar or no sugar at all.
Loswerden will, dann muss man weniger Zucker essen oder gar kein Zucker.
Then you should avoid coffee as much as possible, pork and so on, which is common practice.
Das ist ja gang und gäbe und
and the gut is the chemical factory of us humans. And this is also where the fluids, the blood, after all, everything that is produced there ends up in the circulation system. There are two sayings that come to mind regarding the gut. Healthy gut, healthy human. And another says that death is in the gut. And that is so true from my own experience. For cancer, which was the case for me, I saw it in many programs on QS24. By scientists, not by amateur scientists like me from the field of exercise science. I can call myself a scientist there. It is quite clear that cancer needs an inflammatory environment, a lack of oxygen. And when the healthy bacteria, the good bacteria in the intestine take over, that there is also more oxygen in the blood, that there is a less inflammatory environment. And osteoarthritis can return. So cartilage can be built up.
Knorpel kann aufgebaut werden. Das wissen
Many
so
people
viele
don't
nicht.
know that.
Ein
A
Meniskus,
meniscus can be
der
rebuilt,
kann
that's
wieder
scientific.
aufgebaut werden. Das ist wissenschaftlich.
So that's my
Das ist
specialty
nicht
again.
einfach.
Many
Das
doctors
glauben
don't believe
viele
me.
Ärzte nicht.
Some more and
Manche,
more.
oder immer mehr.
Even
Aber
open
viele
doctors know
Ärzte
this.
wissen das. Knochen wird ja auch,
When the
der
bone
Knorpel
repairs
sich
itself,
selber
bone is
repariert,
also formed.
wird auch Knochen gebildet.
And there are
Ganz
others,
andere
I could
könnte
tell
jetzt
many
viele
stories
Geschichten
now,
erzählen.
and it's the same with cartilage.
Und beim Knorpel ist es genauso.
Only
Nur
the cartilage can
der
be formed
Knorpel
better, or
kann
rather can be
besser
formed better
gebildet
if it is
werden,
not in an
respektive
inflammatory
vor allem
environment.
dann gebildet werden, wenn er nicht in einem entzündlichen Umfeld drin ist.
Because an
Weil,
acidic environment, inflammatory is acidic and alkaline is less inflammatory, or alkaline is not inflammatory if you make black and white. And acidic is inflammatory.
Ist weniger entzündlich oder alkalisch ist nicht entzündlich, wenn man schwarz-weiß macht, und sauer ist entzündlich.
Acidic also
Sauer
has
ist
less
auch,
oxygen and alkaline has more
weniger
oxygen.
Sauerstoff und alkalisch mehr Sauerstoff.
If
Wenn
the
das
environment
Umfeld
is
stimmt,
right, the cartilage
dann
grows
wächst
back
der
very well.
Knorpel sehr gut nach.
It
Tut
also
aber
hurts
weniger
less,
weh,
even
schon
relatively
mal
quickly.
relativ schnell weniger weh.
It can take 2
Das
or
kann
3 weeks
2-3
for the
Wochen sein,
arthritis
dass die
pain to subside
Arthroseschmerzen
considerably if you eat
sehr stark
sauerkraut.
nachlassen, wenn man sich mit Sauerkraut ernährt,
Because
weil
suddenly,
halt
when the environment around this
die
arthrosis becomes alkaline instead of
Umgebung
acidic, the
dieser
inflammation
Arthrose
subsides and the pain goes
plötzlich,
away.
wenn das Umfeld alkalisch wird statt sauer, die Entzündung zurückgeht und dann gehen die Schmerzen weg.
The
Dann ist der
cartilage may
Knorpel
not
zwar
be
noch
there
nicht
yet,
da,
but it will
aber
grow
der
with the
wächst
right
dann
movement.
mit der richtigen Bewegung.
If
Wenn
you
man
then
einfach
change the
die
movement,
Bewegung
if you see
verändert,
these animations here,
sprich,
the knee on the
wenn man
right
hier
there,
jetzt
it always hits in
diese
exactly the same place.
Animationen sieht, rechts das Knie dort, das schlägt ja immer am genau gleichen Ort.
We look at the skeleton on the right.
At the skeleton on the right, exactly, sorry.
Man sieht ja
You can
diesen
see that the
roten
red
Kreis,
circled foot
schlägt
always hits
immer
in the
am
same
gleichen
place.
Ort, ist der Schlag.
And if you now change the
Und wenn man
movement of
jetzt
the foot,
das
so when the
durch
foot no longer
Bewegungsänderung
folds
des
down as it does on
Fußes,
the
also
right
wenn der Fuß
skeleton,
nicht
but
mehr
when it suddenly
direkt am
rolls down
rechten Skeleton
strongly,
runterklappt, sondern wenn der plötzlich kräftig abrollt,
then you can
dann
see it
sieht
already
man
mechanically.
alleine mechanisch
With the
durch das
powerful rolling of
kräftige
the
Abrollen
feet,
der Füße,
the knee is
wird
loaded
das
gently.
Knie schonend belastet.
If, in addition to this gentle load, you also eat sauerkraut, 100 grams per meal, 100 grams at lunchtime and 100 grams in the evening. It takes a certain amount to transform the bad bacteria into good ones. And until you notice that this comes on top, I have experienced this in many, many cases, or vice versa. I have hardly ever experienced that it didn't lead to being pain-free or at least to a massive reduction in pain.
Zu massiven Schmerzreduktionen zumindest geführt hat.
It is both the correct loading of the bones in other places,
Der Knochen an anderer Stelle,
and when the
wenn der
bone is
Knochen
loaded, then the bone
belastet
builds
wird,
up.
dann baut sich eben der Knochen auf.
The cartilage also
Knorpel
builds
baut
up
sich
when it
auf,
is
wenn
subjected to
leicht
soft, elastic,
elastisch,
springy
federnd
loads.
belastet wird.
Trampoline movement is known to load the bone so that it grows.
Den Knochen belasten muss, dass wächst.
Not just the addition of vitamin C, calcium, vitamin K, and so on.
Calcium, Vitamin K und so weiter.
The experts know better what vitamins and minerals you need to take.
Für Vitamine und Mineralstoffe zu sich nehmen müssen.
Not only that.
Das stimmt schon.
That's true,
Aber
but
die
the bacteria in the gut
Bakterien
have to
müssen
change
sich
and the
ändern
load has to change.
und eine
If you do
Veränderung der
everything at the
Belastung,
nutritional
wenn
level
man
but
alles
keep
auf der
moving exactly the
Ernährungsebene
same as the
macht,
skeleton on the right,
aber
then it will be
sich
difficult to
genau
achieve a
gleich
good
so
result in the
weiterbewegt
long
wie
term.
das Skelett rechts, dann wird es schwierig werden, langfristig ein gutes Resultat erzielen.
But all in all, I have never
Alles zusammen
experienced it not working.
habe ich jetzt noch nie erlebt, dass es nicht funktioniert.
But that's good news for many of those affected.
Yes.
Ja,
You once explained it to me beautifully. I can still remember what it was like. You also had a diagram with the cartilage that is compressed like a sponge with every movement. And then, when the pressure is released again, it soaks up nutrients and can grow again. Do you still roughly remember that?
Yes, sure, it's just as you say. There are also studies that say there is pull and tension, pull, tension, pull, tension. This means that, as with a piston and cylinder, liquid must be sucked in. And this liquid is then a good liquid, an alkaline liquid. And then it's pumped. In, out, always sucking in and pumping out. And that together with the load on the bone. There is a study from 1892 which proves that bone stress is necessary to keep bones healthy. The same applies to osteoporosis as to osteoarthritis. That's exactly what you're saying.
It really stuck with me because it seemed totally logical and was something new for me. A new consideration or a new thought. So it's new to me, because I've always known it differently. Classical medical treatment.
You probably don't have the problems yet.
Thank God I don't have them yet. But now it's simply a matter of behaving and moving in such a way that it doesn't happen in the first place.
Prevention, yes of course, that would always be best.
Eating fermented foods, right?
Exactly.
And you say that you can ferment basically anything. So when you think of sour, you always have the idea or perhaps first think of sauerkraut, which might make it sour. It does taste sour, but it's exactly the opposite.
I've often heard people say that sauerkraut makes you sour. That's not true. Sauerkraut makes you alkaline. But it is the lactic acid bacteria that work. And the lactic acid bacteria are the good bacteria. It is said, I have heard also on QS24, by a doctor professor. Karl. What's his name? Tell me. A very, very well-known man who says, healthy gut, healthy human. Probst.
Ah, thank you.
Exactly. And from him I learned, eating a normal diet, even if you think you're eating a healthy diet, but with little probiotics and just eat normally, like pasta and stuff like that. And by the way, there are unfortunately also some substances in the bread, which I once sold myself. Back in Korea, when I didn't know what that meant, not everything has to be bad. But bread is not necessarily a very, very natural food. If you eat a normal diet, you have 80% of bad bacteria in your gut and 20% of good bacteria. And if you eat a probiotic diet regularly, for example 100 grams of raw sauerkraut per meal, then you can change that into 80% good and 20% bad bacteria, and then it tilts in a positive sense.
80% gute und 20% schlechte Bakterien. Und dann kippt eben im positiven Sinn, kippt dann auch
the whole body goes from acidic to alkaline.
der ganze Körper von sauer auf alkalisch.
If we're talking about fermented foods, would you be someone who would say that the majority of people should make them themselves, or can they also get them from the shops? You said earlier that raw sauerkraut is something to look out for.
Well, my experience shows that the fermented vegetables from the shops work very well.
Aha, okay.
What I've seen so far is that you mainly find fermented cabbage in normal shops.
Vor allem Kohl oder Kabis findet, fermentierten.
And I haven't seen any other vegetables yet. Maybe you can buy it from specialized shops online. The most important thing is simply that they are raw, that they have not been pasteurized, and that they are eaten raw. To make them easier to eat if they are too sour, you can mix them well. With carrots, for example. Fermented carrots can be mixed half and half with non-fermented carrot salad. And then it's like 1/3 salad or 2/3. And then pour oil over it and it's actually like a salad.
Yes, okay. That's a good idea.
Instead of using vinegar, simply take the fermented vegetables and mix them with the other ingredients. Beet is also very good. It's still a bit sweet. If you get it on the internet. I don't know about that. I make it myself. Of course, you can also make it yourself. It's a bit of an effort, but you only need salt and nothing else. And well, the pots. You can find out exactly how to do this on the internet. I usually put 20 grams of salt per kilo to be on the safe side, because of fungi and so on. By the way, you can keep it for 25 years, it's a bit like wine, you can keep it for a very, very long time. So I would advise making 10 kilos rather than just these small jars, 1 or 2 kilos, that's a bit. The effort would be too much for me. Instead of mashing, you can also add water and then simply add 20 grams of salt for every liter of water you add. And then you can drink the fermented water. Because it always has to be covered with liquid when you make it. And with sauerkraut, you normally mash it. Continue until your own liquid forms and it is covered with its own liquid. Then put stones on top. I also put nets made from a natural fabric on top. You can also cover with cabbage leaves and then with special stones. It is not advisable to use sandstone or something like that, as it dissolves. I've already done that. Then I once had to throw away 50 kilos of sauerkraut.
Oh no.
Because you could hardly eat it with the sand. It also tasted a bit funny. So this pot with the weighted stones, that's what I would buy. But as I said, you don't have to wait long, because you should let it sit for at least 4 weeks. And then the older it gets, the better it gets. Also a little more acidic, but also better and healthier. I would buy it first and then over time. If you enjoy it, you can make it yourself.
That sounds good. Now we have the title with sauerkraut against osteoarthritis. But we have already established in this conversation that movement is of course also important for cartilage formation and so on and so forth. Maybe we'll look at the pictures again. In other words, how do I achieve the most natural movement possible for my musculoskeletal system, the way movement is actually intended?
Yes. So sauerkraut makes the environment alkaline, which means that the inflammation subsides and the pain also subsides. But if the bone or cartilage is to be rebuilt, it needs a different load than on the right. And if you look at the impact on the knees on the right skeleton, of course it doesn't go away by eating sauerkraut. Only the inflammation subsides and then often the pain as well, if you want to build this up again, and pain is to stay away in the long term. Even if you don't eat sauerkraut for 2 weeks on vacation or so, pain can return quickly after 2 weeks. If you stop then and if you have not changed your exercise. If the cartilage is to be rebuilt, the feet need to be moved differently. After all, the feet are the foundation of the body. If the feet stand differently, move differently, then the whole person stands and walks differently. Different means rolling very vigorously. If you compare the feet of the left skeleton and the right skeleton, or with the human on the left and human on the right, that is adequate. This person on the left, in the sand, this Maasai moves so powerfully that this powerful rolling automatically constitutes his upright walk.
seinen aufrechten Gang ausmacht.
And because the hard, flat ground on which we live our whole lives doesn't train our feet get used to dropping just like that.
Gewöhnen sich die Füße einfach so fallen zu lassen.
We could go into more detail. It is the shin muscles that are tensed and then, together with the calf muscles, very slowly make this powerful movement.
Zusammen ganz langsam diese kraftvolle Bewegung macht.
Ultimately, it is the training and coordination between the shin and calf muscles that makes for a powerful roll, but this is not trained on flat, hard surfaces.
Die das kräftige Abrollen macht, was aber nicht trainiert wird auf den flachen, harten Böden.
And our shoes are built that way. The sole in between, this soft, elastically springy sole, it actually imitates the natural ground on the left side so that the foot moves in this way.
Eigentlich diesen Naturboden auf der linken Seite, damit der Fuß sich so bewegt.
And when the foot moves in this way and is then trained over time in the same way as the left skeleton, then the load on the knees is completely different.
Dann ist die Belastung auf die Knie völlig eine andere.
Excuse me for interrupting. You say our shoes, but you mean your shoes.
When I say our shoes, sorry, we produce our shoes.
Not all of our shoes, but...
Yes, exactly, we produce shoes like that. I don't want to advertise them, but you can also do that by simply wearing shoe with a soft sole and walk like on the left. If you walk like this, you'll immediately notice that it's easier on your knees. And you can do this in a sneaker with a very soft sole. But then you have to be very conscious in your head the whole day. You have to walk so consciously and powerfully, then it works. And if I realize that I can't do it, that I'll forget tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, or that I'll forget in 10 minutes, then the Kaiban or Joya shoes help. They just do it that way, a bit like automatically. Exactly, the foot has to move vigorously, they do that automatically. And then you actually have training for everyday life, where the knees, the hip joint, the whole body moves completely differently. Then at the beginning they almost have the feeling that I shouldn't be that proud. What do people think when I walk upright like that? Many people have told me that it was strange at the beginning. I can't do it now. What do people think? But yes, that is a matter of habit. You get used to it in 2 or 3 days.
I'd rather people walked upright than like the skeleton on the right.
Yes, if you can.
Of course. So, your shoes just imitate that. That's the simple way. For people who don't want to consciously pay attention to their walk at all times.
Exactly.
They offer great support and they imitate the natural soils that occur in nature.
The hard, flat surface is transformed into a soft one. You can imagine, you walk on such a mat, such a 3 to 5 centimeters thick mat that is soft, elastic and springy like a trampoline. When you walk barefoot on a mat like this, you walk quite differently. And you walk like that. And with these shoes, you actually have the mat under your foot, instead of having them laid out everywhere. And then you walk differently. And if you bounce elastically, like on a trampoline, then it supports you and puts more weight on your body than your own weight. When I bounce on the trampoline, I always have maybe 20% or 30% more than my body weight for a brief moment. This trains the bones more than if you only have your own body weight. And above all, it has been properly loaded. The knee is then in an upright position, as are the hips. They are then loaded in an upright position instead of in a bent position. You can see there on the right side, the blow is in the bend, and on the left side it's fully stressed in the upright position. And this is then no longer in the same place where the osteoarthritis is. That is another factor why it no longer hurts. And at the same time, cartilage is built up. So you have a short-term and a long-term solution. Without exercises and without spending time in everyday life.
Very good. Could you tell us where we can find more information on this if viewers would like to find out more? If you search the internet under Kybun, Kybun, or Joya, Joya, you will find us. And that's where you find all this background. And you can also see that they are not just shoes. Of course, we also have 160 different models or so, but above all you can also find the medical solutions or movement science backgrounds. Why it works. Very good. Thank you very much, dear Karl. Our time is up again, but it was an exciting excursion into fermented foods. I will take it to heart and ideally take it to my body. Thank you very much, Karl.
Thank you too.
Dear viewers, thank you very much for watching again. I hope you have now acquired a taste for mainly eating fermented foods. Preventively, above all, and of course also when the horse has already bolted, as we have now heard. A good option to get the body back to health in the most natural way possible. And other options, as we have heard. So the options are there, you can use them yourself. I hope you enjoy it. Stay mindful, alert, and please be kind to yourself. And see you next time. Tune in again when QS24 is back. See you again.